Good morning, bro. So, I kind of want to talk to you today about specifically something that I've been learning, and I've been learning specifically from first my experience, and second from the book Mastery, which has really helped me basically catch this in action as it's happening to me in the moment. And so, let me just jump right into this. So, I'll tell you about just something that's been happening on with my life, not really from this moment, but specifically a thing that happened that really made me catch this in action. And that's specifically a story that happened with me just a couple of days ago. So I was sat there in class doing my usual shit. I was just basically, I just journal a lot and I do all that type of crap in school. And so I went into just basically the lunch break thing, and I went out with my best friend. I came back into the class after the break was done. And basically one dude in the class clearly has been envious of me, and I just couldn't realize it. And he basically he clearly is looking at me as like this. He's very jealous of me. And basically he comes up to me and he's he's just telling me in a weird funny joking tone, almost like he's just trying to embarrass me. And he's like, sit down, you should sit down, all that type of crap. And he's basically saying it in this tone of almost trying to force me to do shit. I clearly understand that he means some dirty ass shit, he means some fucking pornography style that he's been watching. And so basically I completely ignore what he's saying. And then I basically just turn to him what the fuck do you want? Just straight to his face, what the fuck do you want? And then he's basically sit down. He's basically just continues on with this random fucking joking. He clearly is just he's clearly brain dead. And basically then I just tell him, bro, why don't you sit down? And then he's just sit down. He just continues just doing his weird ass shit. And then I basically just stare at him like this, what the fuck do you want? Then he's I probably should just give you some background on this. So before this story happened, in the first semester of the school, basically, the teacher got us to stand in front of the class and talk about our goals and whatever. It was some weird shit, and I basically talked about me, me growing my YouTube channel and growing my audience, and basically I said that I will I know for a fact that I'll become a millionaire. And I think from that time I specifically made him as an envier. I'll just call it envier, a guy who envies you, envier. And so basically he then told me, going back to the other story, the story that happened recently, he basically told me, how do you think you're going to be a millionaire if you don't know how to follow orders? And in my mind, I was laughing my ass off. But in front of him, I didn't really do shit. I just, I snatched the chair out of his hand, and then I just basically sat down. And basically, this made me realize that first, envy actually is fucking, contagious. And I realized the main thing Robert Greene was talking about in Mastery, because I was reading the chapter about social intelligence. And so basically this story was the biggest eye opener to me about specifically just how the fuck what does social intelligence mean and how the fuck do you get around it. Well, I realized I was actually I was a shit on when it comes to social intelligence, and I basically didn't know shit. I made enemies on the walk. I was just doing my own own shit. I didn't have social intelligence to realize that I was accumulating enemies and enviers. And then these situations happen, and I could just look back at all the problems that I faced when it came to social interaction. And all of them started and had the exact same pattern. Let me just tell you a couple examples on this. So just before this guy had basically done this, in the first semester, I talked about this on, I don't know if I did talk about this on the channel, but basically there was this guy who was just very, he was a very fat guy, all the class laughs at him. And basically, I moved, into this class, fairly freshly. I was in another class and I moved there. And so basically, he took his opportunity to try and bully me. And now that was on self-improvement, I was just I was very different from what I was when I was back then in that same class. He knew me as a different person. And so I was just basically counting his own shit. And in my mind, I basically had it. If he does the bullying shit more than 3 times, I'm fucking his face up. And so first time goes by, I just stare at him and I clearly show him, okay, like I'm gonna fuck you over if you do that like another 2 times. He does it again, and then he does it again. Then the 3rd time he does it, I fuck his face up. I literally like the class literally saw me like beat this guy's ass out. Like his head literally like had a fucking big pump thing on his back. And then basically, of course, we go to the principal's office, all the fucking like school protocol shit. And then of course, you know, like basically shit gets on, he like gets yelled at, and yeah, shit goes on, right? And all of that pattern, he knew me because he basically, like, I was in that class before that, and he clearly envied me because of what I used to do versus what he used to do. And I mean, for the guy that, like, recently did that, like, situation, exact same thing. He heard me say how I was going to be a millionaire. He clearly saw me that I was working toward it, reading books in the middle of classes and journaling, and he felt insecure. Same goes for that other guy. Felt insecure. A guy, like a group of people before him, like, why did I leave that class? Because I was getting bullied in that class. And there was a group of bullies, not one. And basically, I left that class, escaping those guys. And why did those guys bully me in the first place? Because they felt insecure. And I was basically like a shining light that they could never touch. And so they would basically try and, like, clump me down and trying to pull me down. And then I go even more before that. And my old friend group were the exact same thing. They would bully me. There was, like, they were basically insecure bitches who would keep bullying me, keep, like, throwing shit at me. They would accumulate a whole bunch of things, like, ideas about me, and then they would just basically throw them at me in, like, some weird shit. I'd be just talking randomly with someone else, and they'd be, like, just basically, like, they'll try to ruin my reputation. It was some fucked up shit, right? And all of them, all those guys, and even before them, there were like a whole bunch of other guys that are even before those, all of them insecure. And I think the main reason for this, I journaled about this, the main reason is because first, I've basically got some extremely good character. And second, which is the thing that I can control, I basically like show this way too much. And I don't talk about insecurities. In the book Mastery and the book 48 Laws of Power, all these books, he basically, like, Robert Greene talks about how we should be talking about our insecurities. Because if we don't, we'll seem too perfect, people will envy us, and then shit like this happens. And that's part of social intelligence. And so the big realization for me is that I lacked a whole bunch of social, like, intelligence. And I seriously want to focus on this. Because it's been a very big constraint in my life. Like, I can just see like 5 or 6 different repetitions of the same pattern, and I still didn't learn my lesson. And so now I think it's about time I fucking learn my lesson. And so this is kind of just the big shit about social intelligence. Seriously, some like thick stuff that's been happening with me. And of course, all of this because people just like, I'm basically very intimidating. Like, people seem to just see me as a very intimidating, like, a identity that walks Earth. And in their head, like, if you know the us versus them dynamic, you know that, like, basically whenever you see someone in 3 seconds, you'll basically say, okay, he's either them or us. And it's unconscious. You can't really control it. Of course, you kind of can control it, like, you just catch it, but it's like, most people are quite mindless. But basically, what I'm kind of, like, trying to go towards is, every single person, or most people that see me, they see me as a them, not really as an us. Mainly because they just see me as a very intimidating thing. Unless I, like, go up to them and I talk to them, which is, you know, like, I mean, most of the guys, like, that are, like, in, like, the same age as me, and they're basically in the same fucking, like, section, most of them are quite cool with me, like, because I'm basically just always, like, talking to them. But some of those guys aren't. Some of those guys envy me. Why? Because they saw me as a very intimidating, like, very shit guy that was just basically a cocky bastard. That's how they saw me. Issue is, you can't really, like, change that fully in their heads. You can only really either ignore them completely, you know, it's basically, like, just ignore them, and I think this is a very bad thing to do. You can avoid them by just going away from them. You can face them, so whenever they say whatever shit, you learn social intelligence, you can basically face them, or you basically just, you know, like live with being a piece of shit that gets laughed at. And I think the fourth option is just the worst, of course, like we all know that shit. But it's just about like, I think developing the social intelligence, as like the book Mastery says, you cannot reach mastery unless you have social intelligence. All the guys who tried to reach mastery and couldn't, they had all the talent, they had everything, and they knew what their purposes and everything. If they didn't have social intelligence, they could never reach mastery. And that's why, like, I just think that this is some big shit to take into consideration. It isn't just some joke to fucking like laugh around at and be like, oh yeah, social intelligence, I'm really socially anxious, haha, you know, like that type of crap. I think we need to really focus on this and definitely try and catch like patterns in this in your life. If you're anything like me, you'll see that you get bullied quite frequently. And really that happens because you're just a very bright person. You're absolutely like, you're just the guy that's always smiling, that's always like going on social interactions, and he's just talking to people. Even though you might deem yourself socially anxious, you still like, in school you clearly aren't, because your bully is bullying you. And the main reason like bullies bully, I might like do a separate morning chat on this, but the main reason anyone would bully anyone is because they see them differently. They see that this guy isn't like me, he is different, and I don't like that. That's basically all of them. It could be out of insecurity, it could be out of anything. And the simple truth is, all those people, they are like, they cannot connect. They know that you're better than them, and they cannot think of a more better like way than to just simply harm you. They can't really say that, oh yeah, like I just want to improve myself so I'll exceed them. No. Instead, what these people will do, they will envy you and try to pull you down. And these are fucking enviers, snakes that you'll just have to fucking deal with on this way. And so honestly, we need to be learning social intelligence. If we ever want to be successful, if we ever want to be doing these things, we have to learn social intelligence. We have to have social intelligence. And we have to have the ability to just understand that, yeah, this guy's a fucking snake and I'm going to be avoiding this guy. This workspace, like these guys, like this employer, he's a snake, he's an asshole, I won't fucking work for him. You've got to be having this awesome ability to just see through people and having the ability to have social intelligence. But in any case, that's kind of what I want to go through. It's definitely something that everyone should consider. No matter who you may think you are, everyone should consider just learning this. If you haven't learned social intelligence, you need to learn what social intelligence is and learning fundamentals in there. But in any case, that's kind of what I want to go through. I'm definitely gonna push myself to try and learn as much as possible about this, because it's a very interesting topic. Seriously, something that like everyone needs to consider, or everyone who wants to reach a higher level in life needs to consider. But in any case, that's kind of what I want to go through. I kind of want to talk about my coachings just a moment. So basically, if you've seen my recent full guide, you'd know that I basically am giving free coaching calls just this month, exclusively just a one-time thing, where you have a free coaching call from me. You have a free coaching call with me. You can claim it anytime. You could just simply come to me, a coaching call, you have a problem or a goal that you want to reach, and I'll basically like have a coaching call, help you with whatever problem you have. Just like you'll get experience on it first, and I'll also get experience from actually teaching you. And so it's a win-win for both of us. And so just basically you can claim your free coaching call. You just go to my Instagram, link in the description, basically just go there. And you basically just send me a message, okay, claim for the free one-to-one coaching call. We'll just hop on, me and you, and we'll just basically like discuss whatever problem or goal you want to reach. I'll help you reach that goal. And it's basically just a win-win for both of us. But in any case, that's kind of what I want to go through. And so I guess I'll see you next morning chat, which probably will be tomorrow, the usual. And so I guess I'll see you, bro.